Welcome in Line. Today with Ezra and Ironroot, we are analyzing a song. This time I chose it, called King by Lauren Aquilina. Guys, you listen to the song. What did you think about it?
It's a very beautiful song.
No, I listened to it and I did because we watched it with a clip, right? And I did get the intensity of the struggle that was manifested within the clip and this transformation of being imposed, like being frustrated to care to protection, which is a really powerful journey.
I came to this song because I'm a fan of Hunter x Hunter, and it showed absolutely amazing friendship in between the king and a blind girl. So the king was ruthless. He doesn't come from human realm. He's an insect, let's say, or like humanoid insect. So he comes to conquer the people, but he's generally bored. So he decided to learn chess. And he gathers from entire world most famous chess players. If a chess player wins, he will fulfill any wish the chess player wants. If the chess player loses, he will kill the chess player. So he kept killing chess players one after the other, like in the most gory, blood exploding way as anime does. Nobody won. And then one day, a blind, absolutely disgusting girl comes in with snots coming out of her nose, and she seems like she's really, really stupid. And she's like, but when she starts playing chess, she keeps winning. And he gets very impressed, and they show this entire monologue in his head about it. Later on, she reveals that all his moves, she made them. She's the creator of the game, creator of the moves, like all of it. And then she reveals, I'm a nobody. I feel like a nobody. The only thing I have is this game. And you, the biggest king, the most terrifying, you give me validity. So it's like he made her sin. He made her important. That's the biggest achievement that she has in her life, is actually that game with the king, or like series of games. King was trying to intimidate her. He was threatening her. And she was like, no, I will not listen to it. I will continue playing my game the way I want to. I will not stop. I will be here all the time. At some point, he tears out his arm and sprays like insect blood on her face. And she's like, I still will not submit to all your threats. I will be playing my game. Then the king decides to kill her at the end. But he has this internal tear because he actually really respects her now. She's the first human being he ever respected, even though she's so disgusting with snots coming out of her nose. Like they actually made it clear that she looks very repulsive in a way. So one night he comes to her room to kill her. And as he opens up the door, there is an eagle who is killing her already. The king murders the eagle and screams, doctors, where are you? Save her. The king gets terrified that he will lose her. Enemies come to kill the king because he is murdering a lot of human beings. So the enemies are actually the good guys. And in order to save wounded girl, he decides to be at the disadvantage, and he tells them, please do not start the fighting here. We will go on your battlefield. Because they came to his ground where he could have easily won. And okay, he goes to their battlefield and loses the battle because he did not know it's a unknown place for him. And the only thing, so he comes back all wounded, he's dying, she is dying. And the only thing they do together, they play one more game at the end. And it was so beautiful. And then I watched that entire love story kind of play out. I mean, it's more friendship story because there was no actual romance. It was just like those impressive minds. She has an impressive, absolutely intelligent mind, and he as well. They both unassuming in their looks, like the battle of characters, and then this decision, like at the end, that mutual thing. The only thing I want now is to play the game or to finish the game. Yeah, so that's how I got that song, and that's why I love it so much. I keep watching it over and over with the same thing. Ezra, what did you think about that animation?
Well, yeah, so I watched it, and then I watched some other videos that kind of explain the story a little bit. And it reminded me of since I didn't actually watch the entire anime, I guess I kind of take it on like a higher level, and it reminded me of I guess the trope of the villain who's sort of transformed into. I took it that the character becomes like more of a hero, or ceases to be a villain. And this is like a trope I've seen in a lot of different things. And it's like the corrupt evil king, that literally the tyrant king. And I think currently I'm taking it as like he's sort of transformed by an encounter with maybe like the divine feminine, that the blind girl may represent, that helps and that this might be like a kind of agape transforming someone out of the tyrant, into a, I don't know, better, or toward the good or something. And so that seemed very moving. So now I'd like to watch there's probably like a bunch of seasons of the show I have to watch, right?
Yeah. You lose a whole part of your life.
It seems good.
Well, Hunter x Hunter is really worthy. Like there are so many greatest anti-heroes that they created, impressively good character arc stories. Yeah, I'm absolutely impressed. Like I would analyze even the poetry used in the actual soundtracks, which would be mainly focused on friendship. There is not, I don't think there is any romance going on in the entire series. Everything is built upon honor, friendship, and art. So art of the, like, art of the killing, let's say, or all other type, or art of the chess playing, the perfection with which you go into everything. That is the most impressive. Like, you do one thing, little thing, but you do it really well. And that's what gave this respect to the blind girl. So she was the most impressive thing, even though in her life she seemed unassuming and nobody, she comes from a very poor family. Like there is that entire part where she could have wished for her family to be wealthy because the king was very rich as well somehow. But she chose that one game. It was very beautiful for me. Like I really love that idea.
Yeah, so I think this idea, right? Like there's an innocence uh, and virginity, right? There's a sense of purity in the young, uh, in the ignorance that can draw you out. The agape that you were talking about, um, and and yeah, like there's a feminine aspect in it, right? It's passive. It's not intentional. It's opening up.
Yeah.
You're alone. You're on your own. So what? Have you gone blind? Have you forgotten what you have and what is yours?
What do you think about it?
Hmm. You want to go, Ezra?
Sure. Um, well, when we get to the have you forgotten what you have and what is yours? It makes me think, it's called King. So I'm thinking about, presumably the king rules over something. And it's like, and has the king has like the maximum of agency. The king's at the top of the hierarchy. So it's like you're not just alone and lonely. It's you've also forgotten your agency. So it's sort of like makes me think of this idea of like what's called learned helplessness, which is like a phenomenon that happens in people, and we studied it in animals and things. And it's like a situation where you become convinced, like you try different things, can't get out of the situation, and you become convinced that it's helpless. And it's this like internalized state where you stop trying. So right away, it's like, have you gone blind? It's you're don't seem to be realizing the agency that you have. It's also interesting you're alone, but the speaker of the song is saying this. So sort of like in a sense we're not alone because now the speaker is talking to us.
Yeah, I'm talking about divine feminine, right? Like I think that voice is representing the divine feminine, right? It's like, oh, I here's a different perspective to get you out of your solipsistic perspective. Um, and I think, right, like the king is separate, right? Like he's not like any other, right? And then if we go to the anime, right, like he's also a bug type creature, right? So he's more separate than just separate, right? So there's this alienation, um, and yeah, like the blindness is the inability to see the connectedness, right? Like there's a distance that is created that that is that forgetting. Well, in some sense it's forgetting, but it's also the lack of ability to feel, right? Like it's a lack of having had it, more so for me than having forgotten what you had. It's not being aware of part of the world. And then if we look at the story, right, there's a there's a sense where that connection is being made for the king, right? Subconsciously, right? Like it's not a conscious development.
Mhm. I like that part about divine feminine and the voice that is singing it. When I hear those words, they remind me of my mom, the way she was talking. when I would feel absolutely helpless, and so I would come to her and it's like, help me, and she's like, you're much stronger than you think. Remember, you're on your own. I will not do it for you. You have to do it yourself. It's absolutely your cross to bear. And knowing that I cannot count on her, she actually made sure I know how to be absolutely independent. Gave me strength. Like, so that phrase, "you're on your own, so what?" That combination is the one that stood out to me the most. So what? That agency thing grows. You become stronger and more powerful. Like you kind of become this airbender for you when you get some energy to transform the reality around you. And the music itself, like it's very, I don't know, divine feminine talking to you somehow.
I also think of like the king being disconnected. So the king feeling alone. He is set apart from everyone else, but it's that misunderstanding of, and I think this is like emblematic of the tyrant king. The tyrant king who sees himself as like separate and above the subjects, not realizing that in a sense the subjects are holding him up. Like he is connected to them. So it's the difference between the tyrant king and the king who like cares for the people under them. It cares for the kingdom. And so I think it's part of why I jumped to the divine feminine, because this is like like the toxic masculine, the tyrant king. You know, this is like uh the opposite. And I really like what you're saying about the you're on your own, so what? Um that it's like that's why it makes me think of agape, because if you're like you mentioned your mother, like if your mother had like swooped in like, well, let me solve all your problems for you, that actually is not agape, right? Then it's like you wouldn't be able to do anything for yourself. You become like a uh you know, you lose agency that way. So this is like it's coming from a loving place. And I mean, at least in the song, you know, you hear the voice and where it seems to be coming from. It's not like a like what it's not like he's being called out exactly, but it's this lovingly redirecting attention to, you know, your own agency. And there's a sense of caring, like caring what, like there's an obvious like love or care for the person, but it's also like, you know, I'm not going to solve it for you. You actually have the power to solve it.
Yeah. I think about to translate the lyrics to the actual insect king. So he was looking for a person who would match his chess playing abilities. So he was one of the kind. Not only he was the king, but he was also the smartest, the fastest, the best fighter. But like when he meets the blind girl, she's the opposite of everything he represents, except the actual chess playing.
All right, glass half empty, glass half full. Well, either way, you won't be going thirsty. Count your blessings, not your flaws.
Yeah, so this is pointing, right? It's pointing at however you frame it, right? There's another way to frame it, right? Like there's a way, I guess you can look at the glass, but you can also look at how the glass is relevant to you. So I actually think that's really a powerful way of describing things. Yeah, like there's a thing that the glass can do for you, and there's also what it's not doing for you, right? Like being full. But yeah, like why would you relate to the thing that isn't? Because you can relate to what is and what it means to you.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. Um, that's a beautiful way of putting it, of breaking that frame, half empty, half full. It's like, um, at least there's a glass, you know. It's just a whole different way to look at it, and and I think it's connected to the previous stanza because that is the exact type of thinking that leads to believing that you have no agency, even if you do. Because if you're looking at all the agency you don't have, which will be infinite, then you're like, well, I infinitely lack agency, But it's kind of an illusion because you also have infinite agency in a different, from a different perspective.
I'm thinking about divine feminine, but I'm also thinking the divine masculine, because the king for me still is divine masculine because of his art and conviction and perception, like everything. It's taken to the highest form of it. Let's say both of them are divine for me. And when she talks, glass half empty, glass half full, either way you won't be going thirsty. So again, so what? You will not be like, don't mind, don't frame the glass. You have the glass and there is water in it. You will not be thirsty. Stop overthinking, basically. Focus on the practical thing. And that again sounds like what my mom would say to me. And she's like,
Yeah, and I like what you're saying about the divine masculine, right? It's like the divine masculine without a home. Like he doesn't have a place to belong, and all these skills, all this perfection is wasted. It doesn't have something to serve, even though the king can serve his country, right? But yeah, he doesn't have something to sacrifice for, but he will have it in the end. So yeah, that's real powerful.
And you said he's an insect, right? So that makes me think of like evolution and the idea that that we talk about like the lizard brain, or you might think of it as like the insect brain, which is like the most primitive system of our physiology. And we think about like an insect world and how simplified and primitive it is. So it's like it's like he's not connected to a kind of depth of the intelligence and the humanity that he also embodies, because he's an insect man. He's not like just an insect. And then I was also thinking about how the idea of you won't be going thirsty is also saying that you have enough. So it's like you always have enough agency. To like that's like the optimal grip on the idea of agency, is like, what is enough, and like this is enough, and what do you actually have, and what can you do with that? That is like the relevant thing, not what you don't have, your flaws versus your blessings. I also think, and this connects to the insect thing and the idea like the primitive brain, I think that we have a bias toward the negative. So fear is like, we're much more biased towards fear, anxiety, and the negative than we are towards like the good. Like it's much more easy to be like terrified and avoid things, I think, for humans, than to be like, yay, everything's so great. So it's trying to oh, that's why I think when you start looking that way, like when you start looking at things in a fearful way and it gets like this more base thinking, then it's like you're reciprocally narrowing. You're like going down into like the hole where you feel like you have no agency and you're like disconnected from what's important.
I will call that no agency. The episode will be called or agency.
You've got it all. You lost your mind in the sound. There's so much more. You can reclaim your crown. So yeah, like reclaiming the crown. I guess that has is connecting back to the forgotten thing, right? Like there's a thing that what once was and is no more, although it's not spoken what that is. Apart from that it is crowning him, right? And a crown is something that's above you, right? Like it's something that you are under, right? So it is in some sense defining you, and it's gold, right? Like so it's a good definition, right? Like there's a positive connotation to the crown. Having lost the mind in the sound is talking about discernment, right? Like how can you separate the things that you should pay attention to, right? Like the things that are valuable from the things that are not, right? Like you got it all means that they're already there, right? And then the crown is like the principle that reinstitutes the relevance, right? Like it's now referencing in relation to that principle.
Yeah, and I think once it's once she says you can reclaim your crown, I almost took it like you're not being kingly. You are not you are not acting as the king, and then like pointing that out that you've lost your crown, which means you've lost that guiding principle, the thing that is above you that pulls it all together, which again makes me think of like that's sort of where the like divine masculine could go off track, right? It's like if you think you're above the crown or there's nothing above you, there's no guiding principle to like pull it all together, then you're kind of like lost, um and I agree that like it lost your mind in the sound makes me think of like it's like a cacophony of sound. You can't pick out what's important. I totally, yeah, that you've lost that discernment, and any possibility of relevance goes with that.
When I was thinking you lost your mind in the sound, I would do this in the past where I would shut down my brain by loud music. And so I would try not to think, and I would try sound scream stuff at me somehow. The thing is, he needs to calm down his mind. For example, not to see glass half empty or half full, to understand that those way of thinking is irrelevant because the glass is there and the water is there. To get rid of unnecessary sounds in your head and to look for the so much more which is there. And the reclaim your crown thing. So for me, it's a person who used to be on top of everything, but then kind of reality showed, oh no. And the person could not adapt to that and somehow had to hide in the sound and to loud thoughts instead of reclaim the agency, as you say. Yes, to get back your agency, reclaim your crown. There is so much more. And I like the phrase, you got it all. Yeah.
I like that connection to like the loud music, because it makes me think of like, it's like if you just blare like aggressive, loud music, it like can put you in this like fight mode. So it's like, again, we're like becoming like more primitive, and it's just like, yes, everything is black or white, and like I'm in this fight, and then uh you know, the like that you can do that to actually kind of get away from anything that would lead to a solution. You know, it's like that being stuck in the having mode, or like this like fight or flight, and to actually calm down and to actually like become aware of, you know, like being, uh is like, because you're talking about like somebody who lost it, they lost the crown, or you know, they like life knocked them down a peg, and it's like, uh there's this there's this compulsion we can have that like, if things aren't going my way, I'll just like double down even harder in the wrong direction. Like I'm going in the wrong direction, but it's like I'll just go even harder. um but sometimes for like when we get our ass kicked, it's like that's when you need to like reevaluate. You know, maybe there's, you can try something different.
Yeah, so I like this idea where, if you look at the crown as this ineffable thing, right? You can't touch it, you can't really know it, and then it disappears, right? Like, and now there's this existential problem that you have to deal with, right? It's like, who am I, right? Like, you're completely confused, you're completely lost, and then having this strong sound, right? Like this thing that's in front of you, it's in your face, right? Now you have something that you can relate to, right? So you have the problem in front of you that you can face, and instead of facing the actual problem, you're pretending to battle it. And in some sense, right, that is generative, because it gives you courage, right? Like it's cultivating the courageous aspect within you, right? But the negative aspect is that you're deluding yourself, right? You're pointing away from the thing that would provide you with a solution. And at a certain point, right, like the king is, like, you're so far away from it that you don't know where to look anymore.
I'm thinking about loneliness. When the song starts, evolution thing, they show actually evolution. That's how it starts. They show DNA, dinosaurs coming out, evolution branching out, and he comes from a different universe. He developed that animalistic type of brain. He did not develop, like, his evolution went different direction. And he travels those universes, let's say, conquering them, but looking for a kindred spirit, for somebody like him. And he encounters somebody absolutely not like him, but equally strong. And their bondage led to his evolution and to her evolution as well, because she also changed by the end. Her entire life and purpose was to serve her family, and he was serving himself and looking for good, let's say, opponents, and she was looking to earn more money to feed her family, like, and not actually like her family, her aunts and uncles. Like, she was an orphan, but she was like all the relatives she needed to feed. All of them for some reason were poor except her. She's like, all of them were depending on her. And so by the end of the game, they become alike each other somehow. Like she's like, this time I'm thinking for myself. She becomes more like him, and she becomes more divine. Before that, she was like a servant. She was not living for herself as well, which is also wrong. Like I get the service is very important, but everything has to have the silver lining. And the meeting of those two divine entities, mm, like it was amazing. They even showed this yin yang, black and white, but like both yin and yang are the same thing, just different color. So they're both the same. Like they're both different but the same somehow. It was awesome. The symbolism of that imagery was very impressive to me. So he changed. He got the missing piece, and she got the missing piece from him. Yeah.
So it's like that makes it's like the unifying of the divine masculine and the divine feminine. It's like that there really are different aspects that are not only both needed, but they're both needed to like fully actualize their opposites. Like the divine masculine can't really be everything it should be without that integration of the feminine, and vice versa. You know, like she's the expert at chess, but she's not, you know, doesn't have that like she would never try to play everyone and then kill them, you know, if they didn't play her. But something about that like that ambitious drive or something like helps complete something for her as well. So it's just like is just calling me toward like, you know, not only might this be a reason to really try to connect with another person who's different from you because they might have some of these things that you lack, but also like each person, it needs to integrate like both of these sides to really gain control of their agency.
Mm-hmm. And that reminds me about the talk that Mathieu Peugeot did. He was talking about God separating Adam from Eve, and then that Eve was what Adam needed to look at himself, right? So she was the mirror that allowed him to see his imperfection, his straying from the path, right? Like there's this thing, right? Like this solipsistic perspective that the king is in the anime, and to be drawn out of that, you need a counteracting, but the counteracting couldn't be another king, right? Like it needed to be a fresh way of seeing himself, right? Like and so that's where the contrast, right, where he's on high and she's below, right? And then still finding himself in her, and finding I guess also a purpose, right? Like because now his skill is of use, right? Like it's not only self-affirming, right? Like he's not, oh, I'm just the best. No, it's like, oh, I'm actually in a struggle against this other thing, and there's something more that is to be had.
So I really admire the process of transformation of both of them. Like when he comes to kill her and then he sees her being attacked and he becomes protective, whereby she used to be at the beginning when they met, she was protective of her village. She came in, I will sacrifice myself, but you will leave my village out of it. So she comes willingly to protect the entire village. And he actually becomes this person who will sacrifice his own well-being to protect her. Somehow it was so impressive how they both change. And then when she kind of gets her last wish, she can use it to protect the village, and instead she gets this selfish wish of being here with the king in the art. And she said like, and this moment will be forever. And they forever kind of play chess in death, kind of that thing. It's really beautiful. Big fan.
Yeah, that's Ariel finding her voice.
Again,
Oh.
that just makes me think of the that he needs to find this divine feminine quality of caring for the other, caring for others, protection of others. And she needs to find this masculine thing of like, but but you, and like her own desires also matter. Like you can't just be a servant to others, and you can't just be an individual. You know, I'm thinking even of the idea of the anti-hero in general. Like what is powerful about the anti-hero is that for one thing, it presences things by their absence. So it's like the anti-hero character actually like connects us to what they should be like by their how not like that they are. But I think that the anti-hero is a powerful like the power of the use of the anti-hero is that there's an aspirational quality because it's like we want them to become more, and that's why there's this trope where like anti-heroes become heroes. So it's like when we watch the anti-hero who might even be evil or whatever, we're kind of comforted because it's like they're more evil than us, right? And then we watch the person who's like more evil than us, we kind of want them to like sometimes like sometimes they become heroes, and then we're like we get connected to this aspirational like, oh, I could
Redemption.
Yeah, I could become better than I am.
Oh.
Sometimes heroes like can intimidate people and turn them like away from the good because it's like it bring like in a way a maybe like a naive or like a shallow hero can actually like bring up the darkness within you or something because you sort of like question it and or see it as a tyrant, and you turn away from the good.
Remember Hannibal Lecter? How he was absolutely anti-hero, but then he was very protective of the policeman lady. And by Hannibal Lecter, I mean actually both of them are quite okay. Anthony Hopkins and the other one. Yeah.
Yeah, last time I watched that, I was thinking like, oh look, like Clarice needs to connect to this like masculine side of herself that's like almost diabolical in order to catch the truly evil, like nasty Buffalo Bill guy or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Also,
and it was very telling that he doesn't hurt Clarice, and it was like, oh, maybe he's just like a manifestation of her dark side or something that she has to use to conquer the dark thing.
That's interesting. He even, I think, became protective of her. Like he sacrificed something to protect her. I kind of see parallels with this, but then like the Hannibal Lecter story is way darker than Hunter x Hunter.
But so you could reframe it as the discovery of something of more value than the thing that you value highest, right?
Yeah.
And then the willingness to sacrifice for that, right? Because I think the sacrifice is necessary for the redemption actually. Because if you just have this other thing, then you don't sacrifice for it. You're not relinquishing the path, right? You're it's just a distraction. It's not real yet.
Yeah. Well, you're in control. Rid of the monsters inside your head. Put all your faults to bed. You can be king again.
Now I bump a little bit on this rid of the monsters inside your head. Because when I hear that line, part of me is like, can you do that? Like, can you actually get rid of, the monsters inside your head? Like that sound, I'm skeptical of that one. That's, I think, the only line in the song that I was like, I'm a little skeptical. But I really like the put all your faults to bed, because I see that as a kind of different idea, because it's not saying kill your faults. It's saying like care for them, put them to bed with loving care, and then you can be king again. That has something to do with how to actually have agency or control.
It's like befriend, right? Befriend the monsters. Like, you're in control. Befriend the monsters inside your head.
I mean, perhaps they could be rid in the sense that you see them not to be monsters anymore. Because I do think, like, if you're seeing stuff in your own head as like you hear a lot of this talk of people talking as if like their head, like their brain can be like out to get them, like it's against them. And I think that can be like really a problem, because it's like you're not going to conquer your own, like you shouldn't see yourself as like in an antagonistic relationship with your own being or something.
I can fix this for all of you, because I think I got a resolution. So first thing that I saw is, with the monsters inside your head, is you're separating yourself, right? So you're not the monster, right? Like the monster is a part of you that can be left behind, right? And so ridding yourself of something doesn't have to be in an adversarial way, right? Like you can leave things behind and then you're rid of them as well, right? So the fact that it's a monster doesn't mean that you have to fight it, because what is this redemption thing all about, right? It's replacing the crown, right? You're putting a different thing at the highest, right? And then you're no longer seeing the glass being half empty or half full. You're seeing the thing to drink, right? And I think that's analogous to ridding yourself of the monster. And then putting your faults to bed, right? Like what is the place of bed? Well, bed is the place of rest. It's the place of not participating, right? So it's putting them out of relevance again, right? So and yeah, so I don't like the control aspect, actually. Like you're responsible or something, because he's not in control, right? Like there's an element where he's, the control isn't his, but I like the progression to reestablishing the kinghood there. Yeah.
I think it's the part you're in control is the agency part, whereby before that he was controlled by the monsters inside the head, who were telling him about the glass half empty or half full. And she said, take charge of them. Whatever they tell you about your faults, put the faults to bed. Whatever gives you those bad ideas, I mean, getting rid of them, this means do not give them attention as well. Like you can have them, but do not feed the troll. Don't feed the troll.
Yeah.
Basically.
You don't get what all this is about. You're too wrapped up in your self-doubt. You've got that young blood. Set it free.
So yeah, young blood is a refreshment, right? Like it's the giving of new life. It's the revivification, and that's contrasted to doubt, which is misapplying your agency, I guess, right? It's not framing the problem right, and in some sense, the young blood is the promise of renewal, right? Like it's representative of faith. It's that which still could be, as opposed to the doubt is relating to fixed choices in some sense, right? It's like I can only do A or B, and so it's talking about, well, you don't get what this is about. It's about an existential modality. How are you being?
Yeah, I agree. I also took I also kind of took the young blood thing like because it's kind of, to me it's a little awkward wording where it's like you've got young blood, set it free, and it's not clear what the set it free is referring to. Like, is it the blood, you know? So it also makes me think of like it made me think of like, yeah, you got to bleed, you know, in a way. Like maybe like, you know, sometimes you have to like bleed it out in a way. You know, like for some reason that's how I took it, like almost like, you know, let your young blood bleed out a bit and maybe even like die and then, you know, become something new. But I connected to that like it seemed to honor like the, I guess I took it as like turn toward your pain instead of trying to like conquer it, like you're fighting the monsters, you're trying to get rid of the faults, you're trying to get rid of your self-doubt. And so I think I took that as like embrace the pain.
So I see the blood being contained within, right? Like the potential's there, but it's shielded away, right? And then all these monsters inside of you, they occupy the territory, right? And the renewal is washing that away with the blood.
Okay, let my divine feminine analyze that line. I don't know, guys will be guys. Young blood set it free. This means let it bleed a little bit. Let's go fight. Don't be scared of the fight. Don't be wrapped up in self-doubt. And like I love the projections. I love it. That's the young blood in you guys talking. Yeah, contain blood. Let it be. My divine feminine told me in the voice of my mother. She's like, stop sitting in a room alone, doubting yourself. Get out there, like you know, like your youthful energy into the world and conquer. Have this. Let your young blood control you. The thing, like when I heard set it free, let your enthusiastic self control you. But again, that's the voice of my mom told me right now. Wrapped up in self-doubt. Don't. Turn off the doubt. And young blood to me associated with impulsivity, making actions without thinking too much about it, just like going ahead, jumping with the parachute, doing that, and set it free. Just let it control you. To become a king, you need to embrace that youthful energy that makes you do things rather than sit alone in the room and think about it.
Yeah, living in the spirit.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I think
a little bit.
Yeah, and I was thinking like that's really that's the solution to like learned helplessness, is that is like, because learned helplessness is this thing where it's as if you've concluded, you know, it's like you assume that your framing of the situation is accurate, and based on that framing you conclude that there's nothing to be done and you have no agency and there's no way to find a solution. So the way out of that is to like return to like forget what you think you know and just try shit, and you'll realize that it's not what you thought it was, you know? Um, yeah. Yeah, I think that's that's what I'm getting from that line. And you know, and maybe like a sense of play, like that young blood as like a sense of play as opposed to like
Calculation.
yeah. Yeah. And then I thought that it's telling that they play a game in the anime, that it's the game of chess that actually unites them. And you know, and the fact that he was just dominating everybody else. So in a sense, he wasn't really playing. There wasn't a sense of play to his game because there wasn't this like, you know, push pull. He's just like dominating every single person until she can actually play at his level, you know?
Well, yeah, he was not connecting to the game part of the game. Yeah, that is, I like that. Because you're playing not only with the game, but you're also in relation to your opponent. And if you're not relating to your opponent, you're only playing half the game, right? You're effectively playing yourself, and the other
Play
one
with
is
yourself.
right. Yeah, the other one is just an AI, right? It's like non-person character. There's methods in my madness. There's no logic in your sadness. You don't gain a single thing from misery. Take it from me. So there's two contradictions there, right? Or at least implicit contradictions, where it's the flipping things upside down. So so Jonathan Peugeot talks about this, where when things go crazy, right? Like the world functions upside down, right? And then there needs to be an event that flips the right side up again, and that is the action of the holy fool, right? The one who does against better judgment, right? And he's reinstating the correct pattern, and everybody's thinking it's stupid, right? But no, he's actually doing the right thing. And he is following that spirit, right? Like he's not thinking, he's just doing what feels correct. You don't gain a single thing from misery, take it from me. So that's an argument from authority, a perspective that is more encompassing, right? So in some sense, this is the awareness speaking, the unconscious, in some sense, rising up and say, "There's more." Like stop being stuck in your misery.
Method in the madness is the divine fool. I mean, not divine fool, but just that representation of gesture who does a thing for a reason. Everything has a reason somehow. And I like how it's the first time she actually took a stance. She actually now completely sounds like a divine mom. She's like, I'm telling you, like, I know what I'm doing. Take it from me, take my experience. There is a method in my madness. So even though it seems illogical to you or you don't understand it, I do, because I lived it. I know what I'm advising you right now. There is no logic in your sadness. So whatever he tells to himself, or the voices or the monsters, whoever tells him that glass is either half empty or half full, there is no logic to it, because it brings him the misery. And there is no, like, when he will be thinking if glass is half empty or half full, he will not drink, and that will bring him to the misery. As long as he's wrapped up in doubt, he will not go out there and experience his youth, let's say. Young, let your youth to be experienced. That's what your young blood is for. Set it free, go and experience it. I mean, not let it bleed, but like experience life. That's what it meant to me. And take it from me, she knows what she's talking about. She's been there. So it's a very nurturing sort of authority. Like she cares for the king. She wants the person to be the king at the highest level. And that's the advice that the nurturing feminine gives to a potential king. Stop doubting yourself, go out there, live your life. No misery.
I love the line, there's no logic in your sadness, because I think it kind of works on two levels for me, because it's like sadness, and which is a human emotion, doesn't really have anything to do with logic. So it's like you think that your sadness is like a logical, like you've come to a conclusion. And I've heard so many people talk this way, or be like, no, like I'm really sad because it's like, a logical, rational conclusion to like how I think the world is. And it's like, no, you think the world's that way because you're sad. But, I just like that of there's no logic in your sadness, which is, it's like questioning that, like, you think that you're this like methodical, logical thing, which again takes back to learned helplessness, where it's like you think that logically you should stop trying. And it's like, this doesn't really have anything to do with logic. Like you're not going to logic your way out of this, which
I want to add something there, because there is a logic, right? You shouldn't be trying the things that you've been trying, right?
yeah,
So that's true, right? And then I feel like you're not standing on the ground you think you're standing on, right? So it's invalidating the logic by pointing out that there's something outside of the logic.
Yeah, and even that line, like you don't gain a single thing from this misery. So it's like you act like it, like to me that points to how the fundamental framing is so like off, because you can be like in a sense causing yourself misery by the way that you're framing things and what you're thinking you should be doing. So it's like you're fighting with those monsters in your head. And it's like presumably you're acting as if you're on this logic of I will defeat them, like this misery will get me somewhere, I will like burn through this misery towards some greater good. And it's like, no, this is just shit. This gets you nowhere. There's nothing productive about the your like quest. And then
You're resolve that.
yeah. And I take the last two lines together, like the take it from me. Like there's something important about that, because it's not saying like, it's saying, it's not just saying like, believe me, it's saying I've been there as well. Like I know from this experience, like I've also had misery. And that's important because, sometimes like the person who might be reaching out to you, or the better part of yourself that might be reaching out to you, you can just be like, well, you don't understand, Dad, And so it's nice to be like, no, like I actually know this because I've been miserable, and that this is not the right way to go.
Yeah, and that take it from me is like, that's a gift that I'm giving to you. Beautiful. Like
Yeah.
The wisdom, the gift of wisdom.
experience. Yeah.
Like, take this instead of,
Boil until
yeah,
your blood gets old. I mean, been there, so like, I get
Yeah.
it.
And there's a method in my madness that is actually pointing outside of itself, right? So you experience it as madness, right? Like, but it's not, right? Like there's a higher thing that you could relate to, and if you relate it to the higher thing, it's a method.
And that's it. And she afterwards repeats the chorus again, and it's beautiful. Guys, I learned a lot from analyzing it with you. I actually did not put it in the context of divine feminine giving advice to regain your agency, and agency would be your divine masculine thing. Like divine feminine is your nurturing, but divine masculine is the agency. Like the king was very active, very outgoing. He was like keep making himself challenges, and she was only taking care of family. Like she was not doing anything else. She was not really outgoing. She could barely walk. She was like she could not see. Like she was all that absolute helplessness. And he was so at the beginning, like I was so impressed how he was even disgusted to play with her because she was so weak in his eyes, and like how everything changed. It was amazing. Like, yeah, absolutely. I advise, like, find the story. I will provide the link below to the actual video with anime, as well as the link to the singer who did an excellent job. And like, her voice is amazing. Like, I can listen to it for hours. Ezra, Manuel, thank you so much for analyzing with me and actually enlightening me, because I would not arrive there without your help.
Yeah, I want to say something more because
Mhm.
I'm looking at this and yes, this divine feminine aspect, I think that's a really good perspective to look at this song. And I'm actually amazed how well concise it's made, this trajectory, because it's not a lot of lines, right? And there's a whole lot of transformation and grabbing a lot of things together and then pointing it towards a way out. And yeah, I think that's really beautifully done.
Me too.
Okay. Thank you for free time, who gives us agency and the possibility
Word
to
to us.
communicate and make things happen. Because we all have the young blood. Let it control us a little bit. People, check out Ezra's YouTube channel. He's a really talented musician, and I hope there will be more music coming out soon. Manuel has a new series, which is Dialogos, as well as the podcast, and the new episode is premiering right now, I think. I mean, by the time we show the episode, like it's already premiered or something new premiering. Bye.
All right.
Okay. Hi. Welcome in passive aggressive Lambaland. That goes out the credits.
Merde, merde, merde.
Oh, yeah.